Good afternoon. We're here today with another edition of the WLS Minute. I'm Eric West with West Lane and Schlager Realty Advisors, the Tenant's Edge. Today's topic is an important component of the Washington, D.C. economy. It's about trade associations. As you know, historically, trade associations have provided high quality jobs and steady growth. And they've acted as a ballast in the market where tech companies and government contractors swing wildly in hiring and growth. Trade associations are steady. And then came COVID-19. So in an industry that was considered recession-proof, it's now finding itself confronted with a landscape that seemingly changed overnight. And there's really no playbook to refer to or for guidance. So today we're going to be talking to one of the true leaders in the trade association world, Jay Younger, the president and CEO of McKinley Advisors. It's one of the country's leading association consulting firms. And what I've learned by working with Jay over the years is that when Jay talks, I'm going to listen. Jay and his team just put out a must-read game plan for associations, outlining how they'll survive and thrive as a result of the corona crisis, and it's more importantly, its after effects. So let's start. Good afternoon, Jay.
Hey, Eric, how are you?
I'm doing well. Before we start our conversation, can you tell us a little bit about McKinley Advisors and what McKinley's been doing over the last 2 months?
Sure. Thanks for having me. McKinley Advisors is a great introduction. Thank you. We are a management consulting firm. We have been in business for 25 years, and our exclusive focus is on the association sector. You know, DC is home to roughly 2,500 trade and professional associations. It's a very major contributor to our local, regional, and indeed national economy. And we really enjoy working for mission-driven organizations. It's a special privilege that we have. So we advise on all kinds of things to help them make smart business decisions, advance their missions, and get the big stuff done. The last couple months for us has been challenging, like it has, I think, for everybody else. We've been doing a lot of adjusting on the fly. Fortunately, as consultants, we were able to go remote pretty much overnight. That was not too difficult. But in the following 2 months, we've been doing a lot of listening. We've been engaging with our clients to understand what's going on with their organizations, with their businesses. I think most of us were preparing for some sort of economic downturn in 2020 or 2021, but I don't think anybody had this on their radar. So we've been engaging to try and figure out how are their organizations changing, what are they going to need in the future, what are their members asking them to do, and it is a dynamic time to be sure. So amid all that listening that we're doing, we're also trying to innovate on our own services and offerings so that we can provide some value to our clients.
That's great. So you've been talking with trade association executives. What we're hearing primarily is the loss of revenue. And so the immediate fire that we're hearing about is trade show revenue and the loss of trade show and conferences this year. And what we're hearing is it may does not be a 2020 issue, but it may go on into 21 and beyond. What advice are you giving your clients potentially to offset or recoup some of the lost revenue from meetings and from conferences?
Yeah, so we're hearing much the same that you are. I think when things really started emerging, in March, my sense was that the immediate reaction that most folks had was that this would be relatively short, relatively temporary. I think we know now that's not going to be the case. This is going to have a long tail, if you will, particularly around the events business, which in aggregate makes up about a third of association revenue. Each group has its own kind of revenue mix. There are certainly some that are long events, conferences, trade shows, exhibitions. Those are the groups that have been most impacted for sure. And while losing the 2020 event was bad enough, now many of them, particularly those with events in the first half of 21, are really thinking about whether or not those are going to be viable. Even if they are viable and there is a face-to-face component, we are expecting that the nature and the dynamics of those events are going to look materially different, even if they are permitted to hold them in some of the convening cities where most of us know the big shows go. So what we're advising on is how to pivot, how to reinvent the organization's programmatic offerings to cope and to adjust to the fact that many more attendees, many more exhibitors, sponsors are likely to be considering whether or not to travel. And so we got to prepare for that. And so those events are going to look significantly different, probably for the foreseeable future. In addition, there are organizations who are not particularly long events who have performed reasonably well. There's still some challenges, obviously, in migrating to a remote workforce, dealing with other revenue streams. And so for those groups, I don't want to suggest that it's business as usual, but it's at least not, it's not the triage that many of the others have experienced.
True. You mentioned that meetings and conferences account for roughly 30% of association revenue. The other side of that coin is membership dues. Where do you see that going? Obviously, 2020 membership is locked in, but where do you see that going in 21 and 22?
Right. So I think we can borrow a fair bit of knowledge from the Great Recession. And so it's actually not that long ago. We were told at the time that it was going to be a generational event. Maybe not. And so we're kind of dusting off the playbook that emerged after 2009, 2010. And as it relates to membership, you're right. Many of those 2020 dues have already been locked in and in some cases paid. We're approaching the time of the year, Q3 and Q4, where many associations are in a calendar year renewal. So those membership conversations are going to start taking place. We know, again, from the Great Recession and previous recessions before that, membership tends to lag. So there's usually a discernible period of time where we see membership results start to taper off a bit. We would expect that to happen in 2021. And what we're encouraging our clients to do is start to get ahead of that issue, start to engage with their members, start to have conversations about 21, understand what's going on with their companies. Again, in certain sectors of the economy, and the associations that represent them, this is a very, very difficult economic environment. And so it's unlikely that those companies are going to be able to sustain their level of dues investment across the board. So we're suggesting to get ahead of that issue, try and engage early and often with the primary decision makers. Probably going to need some flexibility with regard to dues payment, dues relief, continuity. In normal economic times, we really don't advise cutting dues deals or eroding the integrity of your pricing schedule around dues, but these are not normal economic times. So I think that there does need to be some flexibility built into the system.
For those associations whose members are looking at a difficult 21 and 22, how do you convince those members to, in addition to adjusting pricing model, how do you demonstrate to those members that maintaining membership is a value and that they shouldn't just defer for a year or rejoin later on?
Sure. Well, there's a rather indelicate saying that has served the test of time in the association sector, and it's never let a good crisis go to waste. That this is indeed a crisis of huge proportion. The toll it's taken on human life and the economy, it's really a terrible situation. So I don't mean to make light of that. And I think that what we are seeing across associations from all different sectors is that their relevance, their value, their impact is magnified in these times. And this is the type of moment in which associations really do have an opportunity to stand up and be heard and develop programs, services, resources that will be truly impactful and valuable for their members. And so that's kind of the age-old answer, is focus on the value proposition. And I think that is going to look different for many. The types of questions that members are asking, their information needs, their advocacy needs, all of the resources that they're looking to their associations to provide have taken on a different flavor, a different character. And so organizations need to be nimble and innovative and really flex to try and develop those programs and services that will be ultimately valuable for their members.
Yeah, I think that also holds true for most businesses, but very apparent in a membership-based situation where you're looking at annual dues. So if you were to look into your crystal ball in the association landscape, what will it look like in 12 or 24 months?
Yeah, I wish I had one. Yeah, I think we all do. It's difficult. As you mentioned in the outset, there's really no playbook for this. We've seen economic downturns, we've seen recessions, we've seen all kinds of disruptions in the market, but a lot of us, I think, are willing to admit that a lot of this is new. And that said, if I look out 12 to 24 months, I think some things will remain similar. I think that associations will once again rise to the challenge. And I think that the collaboration that is apparent in our industry is so special. There's very few places where, you can come together as a group of executives in a really non-competitive environment to get big things done on the behalf of a profession or an industry. That really is special, particularly in times like this. And so I think that's probably one of the things that doesn't change. Beyond that, a lot is going to change. I think that the skill sets and capabilities that associations are going to need in their workforce are going to shift. We're already seeing that. Huge emphasis on digital education, online events, really having a best-in-class technology capability. Those are all trends that associations were contemplating and doing some work on. COVID has just accelerated that. And so I think 12 to 24 months, if associations are going to be successful, they're going to need to continue that acceleration into this headwind and come out with something really dynamic and compelling in terms of their digital strategy. I also would expect that we're going to see some M&A activity in the association sector. I think that we've been somewhat immune from that for a while, and I don't think we're immune to it anymore. This had already started. We had seen a noticeable uptick in 18 and 19 in interest in consolidation. And I think that the economic factor at this point is going to make that more appealing for some groups, both those with strong balance sheets and those who are maybe struggling a little bit. I think that there could be some benefits to the members and the mission through some smart consolidation. And then finally, I just, and this is certainly relevant for you, I think our workplace is going to look extremely different. Our organization has grown and been successful largely, I think, due to our culture and the talent that we've been able to recruit. And our physical environment was a big part of that over the last 5 to 7 years. How do we go forward in an environment where that's going to look materially different? I think that the workplace dynamics, which are just starting to be front and center for me right now as we approach some sort of reopening plan, I think for associations, that's certainly going to be a necessity here. And if I look out a little bit, I think that the way that organizations engage their staff, engage their members in their physical space is going to be materially different.
Yeah, I agree. As always, Jay Younger, when he speaks, you'd be smart to listen. It's been terrific, Jay. Thank you. If you want to reach Jay or get a copy of his game plan, you can contact him at the letter J Younger at McKinley-advisors.com. I'm Eric West, and if you want to talk about your specific office space situation in greater depth, You can contact me at ewest@wlsrealty.com. This has been another edition of the WLS Minute.